Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I want you to think about a simple question. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do some people remain calm during stress while others become panic? And why do we remember some experiences clearly but forget others quickly? Why do people fall in love, feel jealous, become motivated, or sometimes feel anxious? All of these questions are studied in a fascinating field called psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. It tries to understand how people think, feel, and act in different situations. According to the American Psychological Association, psychology studies how the mind works and how it influences behavior. So, psychology is not just about emotions or therapy. It includes thinking, learning, memory, personality, social interactions, mental health, and even brain function. So, in this lecture, we will explore what psychology means, how psychology became a science, different branches of psychology, major schools of psychological thought. And by the end of this lecture, we'll understand how psychology helps us understand human nature. Origin of the word psychology. Let's begin with the origin of the word psychology. The word psychology comes from Greek language. It has two parts, that is psyche, meaning mind or soul, and logos, meaning study or knowledge. So psychology literally means the study of the mind or soul. In ancient times, philosophers like Aristotle and Plato tried to understand the mind through philosophy, but they did not use experiments or scientific methods. For centuries, questions like what is consciousness, why do people feel emotions, how do we learn, were discussed mainly in philosophy. However, later scientists realized that human behavior can be studied scientifically using observation and experiments. So, this is how psychology slowly developed into a modern scientific discipline. Today, psychology combines ideas from biology, neuroscience, sociology, medicine, philosophy, and this makes psychology a very interdisciplinary field. Now, you might wonder, how do psychologists actually study the mind? Psychology follows the scientific method. There are three important steps. First is collecting facts. Psychologists first observe behavior. They gather information through experiments, surveys, interviews, and observation. For example, a psychologist may observe how students study before exams. The second is developing theories and hypotheses. After collecting data, psychologists create explanations called theories. A theory explains why a behavior happens. For instance, a theory may explain why people forget information quickly if they do not revise it. Third is testing the theories. Next, psychologists test these theories through controlled experiments. If results support the theory, it becomes stronger. If not, the theory is modified. This scientific approach makes psychology reliable and evidence based rather than just an opinion. So, psychology is not guesswork, it is scientific investigation of behavior and mental process. Psychology is a very broad field, so it is divided into different branches or specializations. Each branch focuses on a specific aspect of human behavior. Some major branches include clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, evolutionary, forensic, health, neuropsychology, occupational, social psychology, developmental, and experimental psychology. Think of psychology like a tree with many branches. The main trunk is the study of behavior and mind, but different branches study different areas such as mental health, brain function, workplace behavior, criminal behavior, human development. In the next few slides, we will explore some of these branches. The first is clinical psychology, one of the most well-known branches in clinical psychology. Clinical psychologists focused on mental health problems. Their goal is to understand psychological disorders, diagnose problems, help people cope with emotional difficulties. Clinical psychologists treat issues such as depression, anxiety, stress, trauma, personality disorders. They use different therapies and counseling methods to help patients. For example, if a person has a severe anxiety about public speaking, a clinical psychologist might use cognitive therapy or behavior therapy to help them overcome their fear. Clinical psychology combines science, theory, and practical treatment to improve people's mental well being. Today, clinical psychologists work in hospitals, mental health clinics, universities, and private practice. The second is evolutionary psychology. Next is that this branch studies how human behavior evolved over thousands of years. The idea comes from Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. Evolutionary psychologists believe that many human behaviors develop because they help our ancestors survive and reproduce. For example, why are humans afraid of snakes or spiders? Because in ancient times, these animals were dangerous and fear helped people survive. Similarly, humans seek social relationships because cooperation helps survival. Parents care deeply for children because protecting offspring ensures survival of the species. Evolutionary psychology helps explain behaviors such as attraction, competition, parenting, and social cooperation. It shows that many psychological traits are adaptations shaped by evolution. Another interesting branch is forensic psychology. This field combines psychology and law. Forensic psychologists study criminal behavior and help the legal system. Their work includes assessing criminals, studying motives behind crimes, evaluating mental health of suspects, and providing expert testimony in court. For example, if a criminal claims they were mentally unstable during a crime, a forensic psychologist may evaluate them. They may also help in criminal profiling, trying to understand what type of person might commit a particular crime. Forensic psychologists work with the police departments, courts, prison, investigation agencies. It is one of the most exciting and practical applications of psychology. Then comes health psychology, which focuses on how behavior affects physical health. Doctors usually focus on biological causes of illness, but health psychologists look at the whole person. They study how factors like lifestyle, stress, diet, exercise, social relationships affect health. For example, stress can increase risk of heart disease. Health psychologists may help patients manage stress, adopt healthy habits, quit smoking, improve diet and exercise. They often work together with doctors and nurses in hospitals. Their goal is to promote healthier lifestyles and prevent illness. Neuropsychology studies the relationship between the brain and behavior. Our brain controls everything we do thinking, memory, emotions, and movement. Neuropsychologists study what happens when brain areas are damaged. For example, if someone suffers a stroke, they may lose the ability to speak or remember things. By studying these cases, psychologists learn which brain areas control specific function. They use techniques such as brain imaging, cognitive test, electrical activity recording. Neuropsychology is important for treating conditions like brain injuries, memory disorders, neurological diseases. This field connects psychology with neuroscience and medicine. Occupational psychology, which focuses on behavior in the workplace. Organizations want employees who are productive, satisfied, and motivated. Occupational psychologists help companies improve work performance, job satisfaction, teamwork, leadership, employee well being. For example, if workers are stressed due to workload, psychologists may recommend better scheduling or workplace changes, and they will also help in employee selection, training programs, and leadership development. Their goal is to create healthy and efficient work environments. Then comes the social psychology that studies how people influence each other. Humans are social beings, and our behavior often changes depending on who are we with. Social psychologists study topics like peer pressure, group behavior, prejudice, leadership, aggression, conformity. For example, why do people follow trends? Why do people sometimes behave differently in a group than when they were alone? A famous example is a peer influencing among teenagers. Social psychology shows that our thoughts and actions are often shaped by the presence of other people, even if they are only imagined. So, psychology became a scientific discipline in the 19th century. We'll see for history of psychology. A very important figure was William Wundt. In 1879, Wundt established the first psychology laboratory in Germany. And this event is often considered the birth of modern psychology. Wood used a method called introspection, where people describe their conscious experiences. For example, participants might describe how they feel when seeing a particular color or hearing a sound. Although introspection had limitations, it started the movement of studying the mind scientifically rather than philosophically. And from this point onward, psychology developed rapidly. This is about the psychology, definition, and branches of psychology. Thank you so much.